Today, I'm introducing a resource to help you create your own keepable fasting rule, to find a rhythm for your body that is sustainable and that you can increase or modify as time goes on, but that won't stress you to the breaking point where you won't continue with the Benedict challenge. So, I include a link in the resources for the document that you'll be using to create your own rule. You're going to set a clear intention for each week of this 40-day spiritual fast. On days when you're doing a fast, you have to decide, first of all, what is your eating window going to be? And I recommend starting with just a simple overnight fast where you're fasting for 12 hours, eating for 12 hours, eating just 3 meals a day, no snacking in between. So this will start to get you out of that grazing mode that so many of us are in, where we're eating uncritically, unthoughtfully. And for a lot of us, if we're just not eating late at night or first thing in the morning, that still is a pretty good fast. It's giving your body time to rest and digest, and it will be a great foundation for moving up to some of these more strict fasts like 16-8, fasting for 16 hours, then eating for 8, fast 5, where you're fasting for 19 hours and then eating within a 5-hour window, maybe from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m., 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., whatever fits your schedule. And then finally, the sort of gold standard Benedict option is OMAD, fasting for 22 to 23 hours a day and eating in just a 1 or 2 hour window. I like to specify my meal times so that I have that clear intention. So we'll say breakfast, maybe 8 a.m., lunch is going to be 2 o'clock, and then dinner from 7 to 8, which will give us that 12 hours. This again is what I recommend, but if you feel like you're ready to go a step further, you can skip breakfast most days. And this gets to the next question of your meal structure for the week. How many days will you be doing your fast? And then will you have some sort of intermediate fast on the other days? You can customize this to your own liking. I made an example here of what someone might do in kind of an intermediate level. We consider Sunday to be a feast day, but Wednesdays and Fridays we've got highlighted because these, in this scenario, are the 1 meal a day days. Following the Catholic tradition, we have a little shrimp here, which indicates that it is a seafood day, a no meat day. We'll get into the different kinds of abstinence that you can include in your fasting rule in a second, but let's just walk through what I recommend for someone who's just starting off, doing this for the first time. On Sunday, we're going to go feast day. And really, we're starting this off on a Monday. So, Monday is the first day of fasting. And again, on Monday, we're going to try to stick to this plan of 3 meals a day, starting no earlier than 8 a.m. and eating no later than 8 p.m. Now, Tuesday, we can start to mix things up a little bit. And I'm going to be talking in a future lesson about the benefits of eating a high fat breakfast, or in particular, a low carb breakfast. But the idea of not spiking your insulin until later in the day is both a certain form of a sacrifice, but it also is going to help you reap some of the health benefits without having to white knuckle and getting to the point of being fat adapted where we can fast more easily for long periods of time. So I would recommend on Tuesday trying to eat a breakfast without the usual cereal and muffins. Instead, go for that ketogenic approach of high fat, bacon and eggs, that kind of thing. Or alternatively, you can add butter or MCT oil to your coffee and blend it, and that will give you basically the equivalent of fasting up until lunchtime without any of the real downsides of hunger. Now, Wednesday, because it's a traditional day, I'm going to recommend that this is one day where you try skipping breakfast. And again, if you want to use some bulletproof coffee, drink your heart out. Then we've got 2 more meals, just regular at our regular times. And then on Thursday, maybe we'll return to this keto for breakfast. Then on Friday, see if we can go a little longer. If that fast on Wednesday went well, maybe we'll see if we can make it to dinner or to a late lunch, a 3 p.m. lunch. So we'll put in late lunch here. We're going to have no breakfast and then dinner at the usual time. And then on Saturday, let's just make that same as Sunday. we'll make that a free day, a feast day. So this will give you a little sample of what it's like to fast for longer than you might be accustomed to. Because some people might be doing this during the period of Lent, there are additional abstinences that you can include in your fasting rule that I want to touch on here. Throughout the year, as a sort of standard, the lazy Catholic approach to fasting is just to not eat meat on Wednesdays or Fridays. Fridays in particular, but seafood is okay. No real great challenge there. And then you've got the Eastern Orthodox or Eastern Rite Catholics who, during the period of Lent and Advent, give up certain foods, starting with meat and then dairy, eggs, and then eventually they even give up all oils. So that's a fairly strict form of abstinence, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. With that said, St. Benedict did specify in his rule that the monks were not supposed to eat four-legged animals. So that gets rid of beef, pork, lamb, etc. Next is this ketogenic approach, which would be abstaining from sugar and carbs. There's also paleo and whole 30, which restrict grains, dairy, any added sugars, processed foods. These are generally healthier ways to eat than the standard American diet. And if you're not familiar, there's plenty of other resources. I have my own guide, the Poor Man's Paleo Guide to Eating, Thriving no less, on less than $10 a day. And another paleo principle is this grass-fed or pasture-raised, not eating animals that were raised in factory conditions or confined animal feedlot operations, the CAFOs. So my friend John Connors, who swims in these regenerative circles, is making this one of his forms of fasting. And you can check out my full conversation with John where we go over why we're setting our rule the way that we are. And he's actually encouraged me to make some of my abstinences a little bit more strict, including the following the rule of St. Benedict with respect to no four-legged animals, and then also giving up alcohol. I'm not going ketogenic on this one, but if you're trying to lose weight, that might be a one that you learn more about and see if it works for you. I am, however, going to be doing no desserts after dinner. That's partly so that I'm not eating too late at night. Alcohol, I'm going to specify this is going to be only on the weekends. Alcohol during the week will be one of my abstinences. And then social media, except for work. And then lastly, I had a friend who recommended fasting from negativity, which actually robs us of energy and makes it harder to fast. So if you catch yourself feeling negative, that's going to be a great time to go ahead and pray. Before we get to that, everyone should have a plan with respect to their caffeinated beverages or alternatively dark chocolate. That's a form that I like to consume, a little caffeine stimulant. And you should have a rule for this as well. So my rule is going to be no coffee because I've struggled with that in the past and I seem to do just fine on 2 cups of tea. But you can set this yourself. I'm not going to recommend anything in particular, except that I do recommend spacing it out, not overdoing it, and giving yourself a little bit of time in the morning before you have your first cup of coffee. And you might have a cup of tea first to sort of ease into that and use these graduated rewards to reach your eating window more easily. Then we've got supplements. And if you have any supplements that are recommended by a doctor, of course, you should continue to take those. The only thing that I am in the habit of taking is a little bit of branched chain amino acids, which is a form of, I take it in the form of whey protein. And I use that just before and after my intense workouts on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. I do Muay Thai, which is a Thai kickboxing, and it's combined with a high intensity interval training where I'm going to let myself use that supplement so that I'm not tapping into my body's protein stores, namely the muscles, when I'm doing those intense workouts. And then I'm also going to allow myself some dark chocolate in the afternoon in lieu of one of my 2 cups of tea. Then you want to think about what other exceptions you might want to make. Maybe you've got a little bit of lemon juice in your water. Maybe you'll have alcohol on the weekends, like I said, or that butter and MCT oil in your tea. As a social grace and common courtesy, you might eat whatever is served if you're having dinner at someone else's house. So these are things just again to specify in advance so that when you get to this point, you're not fretting over it and you have a clearly defined rule. And then finally, if you break the rule, don't beat yourself up about it. Comes back to this negativity thing where you can just get back on the horse and start up again. But don't consider that all is lost if you had a snack in between meals or didn't make it to your one meal a day when you were trying to push your comfort zone a little bit. So this is week one, and you definitely are going to need to have some sort of a plan for prayer, for getting that Epiusian, super substantial bread to sustain you to your eating window. And for me, I'm going to go for 1 hour a day of dedicated prayer time. It can be spread out. I tend to pray both in the morning and the evening before going to bed, with a little bit of scripture reading. In particular, as I talked about with John in our little podcast conversation that you can listen to, I'm going to be reading the Gospel of John throughout the course of these 40 days. And then additional spiritual reading, trying to tap into this just maybe in the middle of my day or in the evening when I'm looking for something to do, since I'm after my eating window. And finally, I'm a big proponent of getting outdoors and doing your meditation out in the sun, going for a nature walk, or just sitting down outside. This template can be adapted, and I want you to adapt it to make your own copy. You're going to go up to File, Make a Copy, and that will let you edit it. So you can call it whatever you want, maybe your name plus fasting rule. And we're going to go into more detail on all of these categories, but I want you to just have an idea going into your first week of fasting of what you're planning to do. Don't push your limits, keep it healthy, and be sure that you're pushing yourself just enough, but not too much.